I just want to again thank each and every one of you for this Black History Month program. And so, what we're going to do is play a short video, and after that, we're going to hear from one of our own fellow employees who's a poet, and y'all didn't know it. All right. So let's cue the video, and then we're going to get going with our program here.
Hey, fam. This is Lil John again. It's Black History Month, and it's time for a little lesson on the biggest responsibility we have as Black people, voting. I can't wait to get 18, so I can be like Big John. Big John has a perfect voting record. Let me tell you why. Any review of Black history will reveal that for years, we were subjected to things like literacy tests and poll taxes, and those were the better ones. In the South, when they really didn't want you to vote, they'd ask you to eyeball a jar and tell them how many jelly beans were in it. Or a white poll worker may ask you, how many hairs are there on a dog's back? Jimmy Lee Jackson was killed in 1955 by an Alabama state trooper during a peaceful voting rights march in Marion, Alabama. Voter intimidation by violence is a reality of this nation's history. To understand Black history is to understand how priceless the right to vote is. Are you voting for your community in the upcoming election? And if you don't, who in the hell do you think is? And as Big John always says, no justice, no peace.
Brother Kenneth Cleveland to come up. And many of you have seen him in the hallways. He works upstairs in our county clerk's office, but he's also a poet. And so he's going to bless us with one of his own original compositions. So without further ado, Mr. Kenneth Cleveland.
Good afternoon, everybody. So the title of this piece is I Refuse to Sing, and it's inspired by Bob Marley and the Wailers, the Redemption Song. Unable to rise from a bottomless pit, so it's impossible to overcome. Someday I do believe hatred will be dethroned by freedom, with liberty and justice for everyone. Though my hand was made strong, I am still a gorilla in the midst of somewhere I don't belong, or at least that's how the song goes. In the key of chariots that swing low, hoping I have a home on the other side. But these pirates, yes, they rob I and others like me of all our dreams and kings. Oh, won't you help me scream loud? I am Black, I am proud. But you say all I ever have are redemption songs. Don't you realize our genes collectively string from the Tigris and Euphrates? We are all children of the Garden of Eden. That in itself makes us even, if not equal. Yet we are fed artificial sweeteners for the bitter taste of race relations, more intimidate than intimate. As a matter of fact, just make my redemption plan in the form of a pension. 40 acres and 1 mule for my 401k with interest. And that's just a small percentage of what I'm owed. Until then, I do not recognize this freedom song you speak of. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Cleveland. And so now we're going to start what is called a fireside chat. And for some of you, I get to say young folks in the room, you may say, what's a fireside chat? So long back in the day, 40 and many, many years ago, people would sit around their fireplaces or around radios and listen to the voice coming out of their talk box, right? And it started with President Franklin Roosevelt. So we're going back to the 1930s and 40s when we say a fireside chat. But it's still appropriate today because it creates an intimate feeling where you can come in, talk to someone. So that's why we wanted to give you guys some refreshments to get you comfortable. How many people tested out the refreshments that we had? Did they meet your dietary and culinary standards? Okay, good. We still have food left over there as well. So after this is over, you can go back and enjoy it. So to that end, Commissioner Price agreed to sit down today. And so the man, not the myth, is here tonight with us. And so I'm going to ask you a few questions. And what we did is we canvassed our employees and collected some questions. And we also created a short list for you. So the first thing first, you're a warrior for justice. But I want you to stop and I want to go back to your childhood. What experiences shaped you, or better yet, what pivotal moment in your early life made you choose the path that you're on right now?
Well, I don't know really. And first of all, thank all of you for coming. I know you're tired, you're ready to go home. So am I. So thank you. Thank you for sacrificing. When you talk about childhood, And I always tell people, Forney, Texas, today think they're Frisco to the east. No offense to those of you who live in Forney. My population was 1,544. And when you look at what shaped that, was going in the back, Miss Willie Mae, going in the back of Rachel's cafe and her handing our hamburgers out the back door. Or segregated school system. I know most of you, nobody in here is as old as I am. So when you look at the fact that all the schools in Forney turned out in May, but we only stayed out 2 weeks. We went back to school in the hottest months of the year, June, July, August. No such thing. I didn't know anybody black who had air conditioning. We had water fans, but in the school, there was one fan, and that blew on the teacher. We were in the school the hottest months of the year. In my office across the street for 38 years, I had a big fare ticket, and it said, admit one colored person. September, October, November, we chop cotton, pull cotton, haul hay, combine the maize. And when we finished, then we went back to school. It was segregated. And I think the fact that we could not, I'm the eldest of 6, 3 boys and 3 girls. I was born in San Augustine, Texas. All of my brothers and sisters were born at home in Forney, Texas, because Dr. Christine Zephanisas Walker, who happened to be Greek, delivered all the black kids at home. No such thing as a doctor. You split your foot up and you wrapped it in coal oil and you wrap it in a rag, and that was it. It healed on its own. So it was a segregated society. And that's the way I grew up. So if you ask what gives me the basis of my ethics, work ethic now, it was coming up in that particular society and the challenges. Yeah, we went to the quote picture show and we sat in the crow's nest. I know most of you probably even have the history of that, but we sat in the crow's nest. That means we paid downstairs, then we walked back out, caught the stairs and went upstairs and sat in the balcony. And so I grew up in that society. And it's not that I'm bitter, I'm better because I understand the challenges and there's nothing that I can't do.
All right. So to that end, Commissioner, who had the most influence in your life and why? What person or persons?
I don't think we talk about, I hear that all the time. And again, at my age, I don't know if it's anybody that, I grew up wanting to be a mortician. And homeboy was driving in Cadillacs. I wanted to be a mortician. And so they will tell you, if you go to Terrell, Texas now, Dubose Funeral Home, his daughter, Mr. Dubose, had one child, and that was Brenda. And Brenda will tell you, I spent my time around the funeral homes. That's when I came to Dallas and I started dealing with in and around Cedar Crescent, Walter Wilson, and all that. I wanted to be a mortician. And then my daddy, who was driving trucks during the day and working at the 511 building at night, saw something called computers. And if I'd have followed that, I probably would have been a whole lot better off. But I wound up getting into something called, Fortran and COBOL. Carla, you over there shaking your hand. You don't know nothing about it. Fortran and COBOL. And I started down that road, but I wanted to be a mortician. And that was the only reason, because Chester Dubose looked like he was doing all right.
All right. That's awesome. That's something that we would have never guessed about you.
I spent a lot of time. I spent a lot of time in those funeral homes.
Yes.
And even when I came to Dallas, and Walter Wilson was at the Cedar Crest became the model for funeral homes in Dallas. And when you see now, you can still see the fingerprints of Walter and Lorraine Wilson and the Cedar Crest group.
And one thing that I've come to realize in knowing you is that every weekend, almost, he's attending funerals and bringing comfort to families. He actually brought me comfort in my family when my grandfather passed. I had been at the county at that point, maybe a year and a half. And so can you see those connections where he started out wanting to be a mortician, but he's still navigating and like a satellite, right? And still able to fulfill that purpose. Well, to that, let me ask another question for you. So if you could go back in time and talk to your 25-year-old self, what would you share with that young man based on what you've learned and acquired over the years?
That there is no real substitute for really knowing your history. When you talk about people beginning to mold you, when it came to Dallas, and some of you were there the other day when we were talking with Donald Payton and all, it was, you got to remember, I just told you, Dr. Christine Zephanesis Walker was the only doctor. I never saw a black doctor. We heard about Dr. Jackson in Turl, had the Jackson Clinic. But we didn't see that in Florida. We didn't see that kind of access. And then you heard me the other day, as I get a chance now to talk about C.V. Roman, Dr. C.V. Roman, okay, ENT. I get a chance to name things after him and Dr. R.B. Blewett and Dr. W.J. Flowers and Dr. It's just amazing to know that history and then get a chance to put your fingerprints on something now. John W. Anderson, everybody knows Miss Pearl C. Pearl C. Anderson was, like you said, a great philanthropist, had plenty of money. Downtown Dallas was basically black. When you look at where Earl Cabell building and all of that, that was all, black doctors. And the reason that they kept talking about all of the money she had, the reason she had all of that money was because Dr. John W. Anderson was able to treat, like you said, white patients, because black folks couldn't afford to pay it. And they did basically barter chicken and vegetables and all. But he made a lot of money. He made a lot of money in this community. And so because the county has some oversight over Parkland through the Board of Managers, we finally named a street because of Dr. Anderson, who was the CEO at Parkland forever, John Anderson. We named John W. Anderson, named a street through the complex after Dr. Anderson. And I just think it's important that if you know your history, again, Dr. M.C. Cooper, again, he talked about the other day, coming off the Caruth plantation. Well, if you go over on 352 and Alberta, Blair, and them all, they can all tell you. 352, the Hatcher Street Station, the M.C. Cooper Clinic is there, dental clinic. I didn't get a chance to I mean, that's not our particular clinic, but I was able to pick up the phone and call John Sharp, who was the chancellor of Texas A&M, who acquired Baylor, and say, hey, you can't have me at the Baylor Dental Clinic or now the Texas A&M Dental Clinic and not name something after the first African American dentist in this community, Dr. M.C. Cooper. So when you drive down and 352, Sain Road, Hatcher Street Station, which is probably our second largest COPC in Dallas County, community-oriented primary care clinic, right there is MC Cooper. And so when you look at that, Dr. R.B. Blewett had the first see-through machine in the state of Texas, nothing but an x-ray machine. But he was downtown, right across from where the University of North Texas School of Law is now. Right across the street was Dr. R.B. Blewett's clinic. And so it's nothing like knowing that history. That history is just galvanizing to know those individuals had that kind of power. Lieutenant is here. When you talk about, I came to this community, and most of you not gonna know who Bill Decker was. Bill Decker was a sheriff here for ever and amen. At one time out on Stemmons, where the old Hyatt Regency was, that was the Decker facility. They named it after Bill Decker. Well, the first African American who was a deputy sheriff was Mr. Gill. And I got a chance to meet Mr. Gill when I was first elected as county commissioner. But guess what? He was the only one with a degree, and he was the only one that Bill Decker would not let carry a gun. He had a desk job, and he was the only one. So the best I could do is when we began to build and talk about it, is name the infirmary, which is a medium-sized hospital, 300 bed, after Mr. Gill and Dr. Hernandez. By the way, Dr. Hernandez was the first practicing Hispanic physician at Parkland. And I tell everybody all the time, we said the other day, y'all call it Woodlawn. That was where Parkland began, right there on the corner of Oaklawn and Maple in Dallas. And again, remember, all Black babies were born in the basement, as you saw, if you've seen lately out on the Parkland site. Vincent Hall, who is the new chairman of the board, who's also one of my employees, was born at Parkland in the basement.
Yeah, that is a amazing story. And I talked to him about that, to go from being in the basement to now the chairman of the board. It's unbelievable.
Well, but and again, I'm trying to wrap all the history because again, Lieutenant will tell you, the board will tell you, I was at Dr. Glaze's funeral. Now, 99% of you not gonna know who Dr. William Glaze was. Dr. Glaze, again, was from West Dallas. Dr. Glaze was a pharmacist. Dr. Glaze was an OB-GYN and had a practice. I appointed Dr. Glaze to the Parkland board. And when he finished the Parkland board and when he closed his practice, guess what? We put him in charge of the females, correct, doctor? He was in charge of all the female medicine in the Dallas County jail. And the only reason to be in some of these positions is how do you connect people up so at the end of the day they've made a mark, and it's different because they're here. I mean, that's the only reason. That's the only reason to be here. I tell people all the time who we on board could have retired 20 years ago. It's still on mission. There's so much in this county, and I appreciate all of you, but it's so much in this county that still needs to be done. And that's the reason I challenge people. I don't care if you're Black, Hispanic, I'm going to challenge you. This county needs to be better because you are here. And if it's not, then you just, as my daddy said, you just sucking up air, you're just taking up space. I mean, you got to make the marked difference.
That is a very powerful statement. This county needs to be better because you are here. So that's a charge, a call to order. So, Commissioner, I'm going to go. I want you to think about what's the one book. It can also be a movie, even a music, even a song. What type of experience has profoundly impacted you? And going back in time again, I know for me, reading Malcolm X's autobiography, I remember when my eyes were opened at that point. Because before that, when I heard the name Malcolm X, you talk about terror, and all the connotations associated with the X. But once I learned who the man was, going back to Detroit Red, all the way up to, So what can you tell us, what profound book, it could be a movie?
It's so many people. I mean, Paul Robeson is my hero. And of course, I applauded President Biden when he basically pardoned another one of my heroes, Marcus Mosiah Garvey. If you have never read Amy Jacks Garvey's piece on her dad, then you've missed it. Okay? But the most brilliant person that I can't even fathom still is Paul Robeson. I mean, everybody talks about, and I tell young people this, I said, how many of you know who Deion Sanders is? And of course, they know. Well, Paul Robeson played offense and defense long before Deion was a sparkle in his mama's eye. He played for Rutgers. Paul Robeson was a lawyer. Paul Robeson was one of the greatest baritones ever. Paul Robeson did Othello in more languages than anybody living. Paul Robeson, I mean, this brother was just amazing. And remember, when you read the story, his teammates, because they didn't want to play Rutgers, and his teammates jumped on him. They assaulted him, and they put him in the hospital. His own teammates. And the reporter asked him, said, are you going back to play on the team? And he said, I've got to. He said, because not to would allow them to win. This brother was unbelievable. I mean, and I said languages. I said Othello, Shakespeare, Othello in more languages than anybody living today. And so it's so many people like that that's in our history. So, I mean, how do you choose one? How do you choose Marcus Mosiah Garvey? Anything we do now in terms of Kwanzaa, we patterned after Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Of course, he talks about Malcolm. I've had the occasion to get to know not only Malcolm. When Dr. Betty came to El Centro College, we bought Dr. Betty Shabazz. Okay, I got a chance to know the family. When I went to the United Nations, it was with Ambassador Atala Shabazz. And so I've been a very fortunate brother just to be able to be, when they talk about Jesse or Even Jackie Robinson. Everybody was talking about just this week. Jackie Robinson's daughter came down and worked our campaign, worked in my campaign, because Pettis Norman, the late Pettis Norman, and I ran Jesse Jackson's campaign out of my campaign office. And most people don't know, to date, in '84, he carried Dallas County. But Jackie Robinson's only daughter, I mean, William Sidney Pittman, Booker T. Washington's only son-in-law, married his daughter Portia. They lived in Dallas. They're buried over behind Lincoln High School in the Pinkerton College Cemetery. We take care of that. We take care of those grave sites right now. But Portia's there. William Sidney Pittman is there. One of the greatest architects. Pittman Hotel down here. That's Booker T. Washington. And I think sometimes we still don't know enough about our history. This ain't about me. This is about knowing about our history and I said this the other day, what Booker T. Washington told Mr. Pittman. Said, I don't care how great of an architect you are, you need to learn brick making. And so he sent him to Europe to learn to make bricks. When you look at what happens at the Pittman Hotel, and they were about to let that hotel go to what we call demolition by neglect. They were going to let it go down. I know that's the Knights of Pythias, by the way, and I'll let y'all do the history on the Knights of Pythias. It was one of the premier. Everybody, we used to say everybody wanted to die and go to Atlanta. You know, we used to hear, oh, we got to go to Atlanta because Atlanta is where it's happening. Dallas was that kind of Mecca. Black doctors, Black lawyers. When you look at what happened in this state, Thurgood Marshall, I mean, he worked with W.J. Durham. Look up the cases. W.J. Durham, a premier lawyer. And he was one of the lawyers the other day when you heard us talk about Tommy Lee Washington and how he was falsely executed by this county. But W.J. Finch, these guys, Mr. Finch, who is Molly Belt's father. If any of you remember, they were assaulted. Both the father and the mother were killed in South Dallas. But Finch graduated. He was a graduate of Harvard. Right here, again, worked with W.J. Durham, worked with Thurgood Marshall. And so when those of you who are proud and are lawyers and went to Texas Southern, they put that school together because Thurgood Marshall, W.J. Durham, sued the state of Texas. They did not prevail, but they wound up. And by the way, that's a Sweat case. Aren't you related to Sweat? I thought some of you, you're not related to Sweat. Hemi Sweat case is the reason Texas Southern is there now. Case came out of Texas. You just gotta know. We got so much history. I was listening to this brother a few minutes ago, and Dr. John Henry Clark. You remind me, I don't know if you know do you know who John Henry Clark is? Look up. Wrote 25 books after he became blind. Got a chance to know Dr. Clark. And he says, to some, it's history I teach. Others, we need to make them learn. And I mean, just unbelievable. Spent a lot of time in Harlem. He came out of that whole Harlem piece. But you know, right now we all, and again, I'm not knocking people. We're talking about celebrating. But what are we celebrating? What do we really know? There's a new book by Jackie Robinson, and it's there's some things that Jackie talks about should have taken to the grave. I haven't read it, just got the book, but it's we just need to know the history. I don't know how somebody can read their history and then not be emboldened. You know, I remember a lady was telling me the other day, she said, she was very proudful. In fact, she was over in the jail talking about her daughter was playing Rosa Parks. And I said, wow, that's great. I said, but do you know who preceded Rosa? We still don't know our history. And that's my impetus. Because God and I can talk every morning. 3:30, my eyes come open, Judge. My eyes come open every morning at 3:30. I'm claiming that. Okay. But you know, my eyes come open at 3:30. I don't use alarm clock, you know. And so I'm up and I'm going to see something every day that tells me, how dare me try to get tired. How dare me. I want to go to bed with my fists balled up and I want to wake up swinging. How dare me talk about I'm tired. And I'm closer to 100 than I am to 50. But we'll talk about that at some other time.
So that's a great segue to the next question. So how do you stay motivated and inspired with everything? I mean, there's still more to do. You have the energy of 100 men, but give us, some of us younger folks in the room, that history. This history. I'm looking at this history.
You know, people think I know they think they know Muhammad Ali, and thanks to you and your people the other day for probably one of the longest Black History resolutions I've ever done.
Right.
I didn't think anybody think I was going to finish reading. You know, but if we don't frame the history of who, you know, y'all, what do they call it now? Uptown. Uptown. I came to Dallas. That's Black community. When you see A. Maceo Smith building, he lived over there. He lived at Thomason Hall. A. Maceo Smith. Dallas had the first Black chamber of commerce. It was called the Negro Chamber in the country. That's just how prominent you were. Dallas. I know y'all, again, everybody's talking about it now. Dallas. And the A. Maceo Smiths of the world, they lived right there with all of that uptown area. And unfortunately, when you look at, I've been a commissioner 40 years, I'm gonna tell you, I've watched that whole migration. When you talk about the Moreland Y ain't in Oak Cliff. The Moreland Y was right over here in Short, North Dallas. Muhammad Ali, Floyd Patterson, everybody who came to town, you couldn't stay in the hotels anyway. You stayed at the Y. It's the home to the Dallas Black Dance Theater now. One thing about it, yeah, she saved it. But go back and get the construction on when it was built. When Miss Clark opened it up, I got a chance to basically christen. And I christened it with the history. They were told that to build a Y in Dallas, they needed to raise $50,000. And not only did they raise $50,000, they raised $75,000 in less than 90 days. Guess what? The Consumer Price Index says that that was equivalent to $900,000. Tell me the last project we embarked on in Dallas, where we almost raised $1 million, especially in 90 days, due to history. And so when you see that kind of history, what? I mean, you know, and Martin Luther King III was a county commissioner in Fulton County. And I know Marty, I kind of go by Bernice and all of them. And it's been so many people in this community that I've been so fortunate. I've been the beneficiary. When I drive north on 45 and I see Al Lipscomb Way, I feel good. I mean, it may just be a street to you, an off ramp. But I know what happened. There's flyovers. When I look at South Dallas and I watch these values, TxDOT did not want to put an exit. Read the book, Black Labor, White Wealth, by Dr. Claude Anderson. It's relevant. And it's how, not just in Dallas, all over this country, they built flyovers over our community. You want to kill a community? Take access out. Growth and development follows pathways. Growth and development. Notice all over this country, now they're trying to do what we're doing out here at what we now call 345, bringing it down to grade. You know why they can bring it to grade now? Because they got a whole different design in terms of how they build communities. But you kill communities when you read Black Labor and White Wealth, and you do flyovers. Connect. So J.B. Jackson, who attended Morehouse with Dr. King, was from Dallas. And so he part of the Frederick Douglass Voting Society. Oh, I know you thought J.B. Jackson was just the name of a train station in South Dallas. We've had so many people in this community. When I got here, I had to fight George Allen. 99% of us don't really know who George Allen was. And when you get into what district do they call it now? They don't call it the designs over here. What's the one down about where the Black Dance Theater is?
Art District.
Arts District. Yes. Guess who was sitting right up on Ross Avenue, where all of that's doing right now? George Allen. He had a consultant firm. George Allen, what did he do in this community? And I had an arm wrestling contest to be able to name that building after him. George Allen. And so I think that what we really don't know is we don't really know our history. And you know our kids don't know it. You know. I was looking at Jess and that I Am Somebody, And I appreciate the judge kind of bringing that back up the other day. But let me just tell you, our kids don't know Operation Push well.
Nope.
And you better not say Shirley Chisholm. I know, they have no clue. And so that's what keeps me motivated. I'm like, how dare me? And I'm the beneficiary. I thank my votes every day. I tell people I run every year. I don't run in cycles. I run every year because that's what I'm supposed to do. My daddy used to say, boy, you ain't the first person with ability. You're the first person with opportunity. There's a big difference. A whole lot of folks had ability long before I came along. Could have been a county commission, thing else. Don't take nothing to build them roads and bridges. That's true. I got superintendents and good engineers. So what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to advocate to change the dynamics of how we get a chance. What are you sending your kids to school for? Prairie View is the leading institution in the country for Black engineers. Name my hygienist, Dr. Watkins, our hygienist. Has she ever talked to you? Next time you see her, ask her. So where does your son go to school? Chemical engineering. He's at Prairie View. A lot of white kids. The travesty I just told you about the Hemi Sweat case. The real travesty is when you look at what's going on at TSU. Because most folks at TSU don't look like me. Go down and look at the law school now. Anglos who can't get in anywhere else, they're getting in at TSU. Hispanics, number one. Number one contributor to Texas Southern University is Domingo Garcia. I'm talking about millions of dollars. So what motivates me? I'm just trying to figure out why are you not motivated more?
I think that deserves a round of applause. I have captured several jewels, and that's what we're receiving. These are nuggets of wisdom. These are jewels that need to be polished and treasured. So I want to open it up to the audience because we've captured some questions that some of you sent in to us, but I'm sure there's a few in the audience that would love to ask them some questions. So don't you all jump up at once. Who has a question for the commission? Yes, sir. Mr. Webb.
When did you first realize that your voice and your actions held the power of change?
Okay. That's an interesting question. When someone told me, said, you need to go into something called politics. Let me just tell you, there were some, talked about everybody except Emmett Whitman. Talked about A. Maceo, who was a founder. When you look at the Progressive Voters League, the PVL, A. Maceo and Emmett Whitman. Emmett Whitman was with the Progressive Voters League. This guy named Al Lipscomb, I kept telling y'all about. I had never been in politics. I came out of Forney, Texas. I told you, population 1,544. Came to Dallas. I looked over and saw this woman. She said, I'll marry you. No, I was excited. So I got married. Yeah, y'all think I'm joking. I'm serious. But anyway, I moved into 3302. It's interesting about that first house you get. 3302 Reynolds Avenue off of Dolphin Road. I'm married. My son. And so a guy by the name of Jim Maddox, who later became Attorney General, who later became a congressman, but at that time he was running for state representative. He showed up at my house one night and he said, you ought to run for precinct chair. I don't know nothing about no precinct chair. He said, I'll help you. Jim Maddox. And by the way, he went on and became state representative, went on and became congressman, went on to become attorney general. I ran for precinct chair. And at that time, I was dealing with a fraternity called Alpha Phi Omega. It was a service fraternity. We were building houses and rebuilding houses for people in South Dallas. Sigma Phi Chi was a sorority. We campaigned, and I campaigned pretty much undercover because at that time, the community I had moved into didn't quite look like me. So I campaigned. I won. I showed up at the convention, and that night, I walked in, and they were taken aback. And I went to, at that time, it was called the 16th Senatorial Convention. And I went to the convention with an apportionment of the delegation. And the majority of my delegation was George Wallace. So every time I got up at the convention to cast the votes, I had to apportion for George Wallace. And finally, this guy named Al Lipscomb came over to me. He said, young man, where you from? And that's when I met Al Lipscomb at the 16th Senatorial Convention. He took me and introduced me to Francis Dirks. These are people that just embraced me. And as a result, I got involved with the Progressive Voters League. I became only the second chair of the Progressive Voters League, while Dr. Jesse Jones, who was a state representative, he wasn't at that time, became the president. So he took over that. I took over the chairman, and we built our political base from that. But those people, Pat Baker, who happened to be Anglo, she embraced me. Francis Dirk, African American, embraced me. And the difference between me and what I see now is young folks, they don't really want, they still think we old school. They don't want no guidance. They don't want any guidance. I'm trying to tell you what to do. I mean, we got enough, slings and arrows. We just don't want you going through that same deal. And I'm gonna tell you something, and we'll talk about this. But yesterday, let me just tell you the difference. 22, first day of voting, y'all voted 4,000 in Dallas County. 24, first day of voting, y'all voted 4,000 in Dallas County. Yesterday, we voted 12,000. I think it's going to be even more today, because I'm still something like, I think it's going to be even more. But, we've got to take this stuff seriously. I mean, that's the part. That's the only reason I'm here. The Coalition for Minority Representation, I founded it, but I had people to help surround it. When you look at what's happening with, y'all call it the Crockett District now, but it was the Eddie Bernice Johnson District. But before that, it was the Martin Frost and John Bryant District. And the thing that separated us is right out there. It's called the Trinity River. And so when I assembled the coalition, I said, hey, we didn't dig the Trinity River. We didn't inherit the Trinity River. Why is it splitting our community? And so as a result, the 30th Congressional District was formed. Wow. Know the history. And so once you understand that, and even right now, John Bryant, when he retired from Congress, John Bryant is back in the state legislature from Dallas. He was a congressman. Yvonne Davis, who worked for me, went to Washington and worked for John Bryant. She is now the senior member of the delegation from Dallas. Just tied together the history. So all of these people, they have such profound influence on me and my life. And so I owe it to them every day, to get up and go hard. And just don't ever forget, where you came from. That's the key. And Lieutenant will tell you, and others will tell you, I'm over there. That's our largest workforce over there. How dare me? I'm commissioner. What does that mean? That means that do I use the power to try to help get things done for people who I see carrying the load? That's all it's about. Because I'm telling you, this don't get caught up about who you think you are. It's just don't get. You're here for a reason. You're part of the plan. And when you leave, the only thing I ever ask myself, will anybody miss you? Will anybody miss you? Did you make enough of a dent that somebody will say, I miss them?
That is deep. Thank you, sir. We have time for one more question. Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner, most of my questions you've already answered, but I'd like to know how heavy do you feel the weight of us?
Of us?
Yes.
Okay.
Because we are better with you where you are. How big of a weight is that for you? And to us, you already gave us a challenge, but how do we lift that weight?
That's a good question. Thank you, Lieutenant. You perform. Just that simple. You ain't heavy. You're my brother and my sister. You ain't heavy. That's what I'm here for. But when you perform, it's the same way I tell him about what people would bring. When you perform, I get a chance to stick my chest out. But that's the key. That's it.
Yes.
It's, like I said, this ain't about me. I'm just out there as your cheerleader. And I want you to perform. I mean, sometimes I say some things I know that embarrass you, but that's okay. That's all right. I can live with it. But my point is that, I'm me, but all I need you to do is perform. That's the reason I want to be the person to measure up. When I say I've been here 50 years and I've missed 90 days of work, I'm proud of that. What I'm saying to you is, come to work. Hell, I'm older, and not just to come to work when you get here. You know, the difference between me and you, of course, you might have to do a little bit more, but most people I tell on the onboarding, remember, taxpayers expect 40 hours from you. Your colleagues expect 40 hours from you. Let me tell you what they expect from me. They expect me to respond every time they call. If I'm at the service station and they want to talk about peaches or Junebug, I gotta respond. I'm at church on Sunday, and it's some of the highest compliment. This lady ran me down, and I'm gonna get a chance to tell her son. I ain't heard from him. He's Canada. He running, but his mother, ran me down. Came to my church. I went to her church just as I do on Sundays. Different churches. Only 52 weeks in a year. If I go to 2 church services, I can't cover a tenth of the churches. I went to her church. Her son is on the ballot. She came to my church at 8 o'clock looking for me. They said he's on duty. That lady came back at 10:30. And I love her. She told them ushers, y'all go get him. And they finally said, this lady's been in. That's fine. I stepped up. And she offered for her son. Not only, I told her, I said, I'm already committed now. But I'm going to tell you something. I can't wait to see that son of her, because I ain't heard from him. Difference. That's the difference. I just need people to stand up where they are, be who they are. And what the kids say, represent. I just need you to represent. Daddy said, rather see a sermon than hear one. And, whatever I did, I did. I do. But they ain't gonna have to, as Daddy said, they ain't gonna have to hallucinate no funeral for me. Because y'all know when they stand up that line.
That's right. Yeah.
They stand up there saying all of this and everything.
Right.
Come on. What they say. He saw a good fight and he got in it. Hell, he didn't even know what a fight was. We wear that out. I know Judge Martinez. I know y'all know what I'm talking about. But we get them saying he fought a good fight. Hell, he didn't even show up. You don't need that. And I tell my son that all the time. At least they don't have to hallucinate something about it. Mr. Crawford talked about it earlier. Me going to all these funerals. I go to 3 or 4 funerals a week. And of course you've seen me, but it gives me just to measure up. Give me a chance to see, I thought I was doing something. I really ain't doing nothing. I told somebody I went to a funeral here about a week ago. And the other day I was hurting. And I had a chance to tell them. I thought about what I heard at that funeral. How dare me? Talk about I'm tired. How dare me? Y'all, we just the beneficiaries of all this stuff. Last thing I'm gonna say, Mr. Crawford, we started all that land y'all see out at Valley View. That was black folks' land. Mm-hmm. White Rock is not over in East Dallas. White Rock Cemetery is out behind the Galleria. You have a hard time finding it, I think, Mr. Martin. I think I took some. We take care of that cemetery as well. Just like Kingston Color Cemetery with Mr. Pittman and Portia and some of the other people. White Rock, where the Galleria was, all black folks' land. The migration became as we began to get pushed south. Well, y'all see UT Southwestern now, don't blink. Record crossing, black folk. Mr. Sam, who filed against DISD because his daughter couldn't go to school, lived in Arlington Park. Oh, I know y'all don't know where Arlington Park is now. Created for black men returning from the war. And you're lucky if there's 15, 20 houses out there now. That was a robust community. Just do the history. Just do the history. And just ask yourself, as a result of you being here today, what? I've got 100% voting record, as Lil John said. I got 100%. 100%. I voted absentee one time in my life. That's cause they had me locked up. Hey, I voted. I voted. Judge Pruitt told me, charged me with obstructing highway passage. He told me not to do it. He put me on probation, and I went back and I did it again. And they gave me 75 days in jail. Just so happened, I got a chance to serve on 3-1. I voted. I voted. And Lee Jackson, highest compliment he ever gave me, he said, when you go to jail in the future, try not to go to jail in Dallas County. Because when I came out of the jail, they had to spend millions of dollars. Because I was still a commissioner. They just put me in jail.
Second floor.
You're right.
No justice, no peace.
No justice, no peace every night. And you know, and the thing is, and it makes a difference who's in office. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
They came in every night. You're looking at a teetotaler. You're looking at somebody who ain't never drank or smoked a day in his life, not even a beer. They came into my cell every night, pulled me out. They checked down on my beds every night. But every night there was a delegation of people. E.K. Bailey, never forget it, long as I live. Reverend E.K. Bailey. They were out there, candlelight vigil, protesting every night. How dare me? How dare me? I'm okay. Thank you, Mr. Crawford, Mr. Romaine. Thank you to all of you for all the time I took up. But just remember, it's the history that drives me. It's the history that should drive you. I can't even fathom what they went through. I know you don't know anything about a 100-pound cotton sack. I know you don't know anything about getting picked up at 5 in the morning and being in that field all day long. I know you don't know anything about any of that because your mind probably really can't take it. Just think about it. What people went through for us to be where we are. Can't imagine. Because I know it's rough, just what I thought was rough. I can't imagine. Paul Roberson, read about it. Mm-hmm. That's my boy.
I want to say, Commissioner, on behalf of our employees, because a lot of us are here because of him, unknowingly. He's a champion, he's an advocate, tireless warrior. And so I'm telling you, thank you for the path and the opportunities that you've afforded me personally, but also for our employees that are not here tonight. This whole room should have been filled up. And I get it. And that's why when we were talking earlier about you work a full day and then, and some of us have children and we need to get home and think we have other commitments. But when you have someone like him that is willing to impart wisdom and share these stories, there's an old saying, each one teach one. That's the problem we have nowadays. People don't have the patience to sit down and listen. He reminds me of my great grandfather who he would pour into me. And my buddies were like, come on, man, let's go ride our bikes and all that. But see, I stayed with my grandfather because he took the time to tell me these stories about where we came from, but more importantly, where we going. Because if we don't know our history, what do they say? You're doomed to repeat it, right? So, Commissioner, on behalf of our committee here, we just thank you for your time today. Also, I want to encourage all of you. Tomorrow, we have a sickle cell blood drive up on the 6th floor, and we want you to come out, okay? Also, Mr. Martin is in the room. I want to recognize Mr. Martin. Thank you for allowing us to put these types of programs on for our employees. And again, when y'all go back, yes, sir.
I'm taking my mic off, but Mr. Martin, talking about an interesting journey. Let him tell you sometime how he got here. But I'm always glad to see there's 3,100 counties, 3,104 in the United States. Texas has 254 counties. 14 over 3,104. 14 black sheriffs in the country. 5 black women. Hello? Anybody gonna figure out where I'm going? Sheriff, I'm glad to see you.
Yes.
Come on down.
There she is. Yeah.
Thank you, Sheriff.
So as we come to a close, I'm going to ask you to do one more thing for us. Can we come down and take a picture with Commissioner? Let's capture this moment. All right. Everybody squeeze in. I think we can get it. We do. Thank y'all for coming. Yeah, everybody squeeze in. You want him to go up top? Well, he's a man of people.